still a few more people jumping on. Okay, so what I want to do just to start is I'm sharing my screen here, and I want to someone's still joining. Okay, I just want to start by saying two chapters of Psalms together. I think that's a good way to begin because whenever we are experiencing tragedy or in any way just out of sorts and not really sure where to go and how to respond, the best way to start is always with the Psalms of King David. Sort of like at a funeral, when we go to a funeral, we start with Psalms of King David because they comfort us and they give us direction and they support us in ways that we don't even realize necessarily. So too, like in these situations, reciting Psalms is really the best way to start. And when we recite these Psalms, I picked two particular chapters of Psalms that are meant to be said, that are typically said when there's people that are in need of healing and refuah and recovery. So I found it a little bit difficult to actually get clear, updated information about who's still in critical condition and what who exactly is, what the situations are. So I don't know. Maybe somebody does, and if somebody does, it would be helpful. Maybe if they can share that. But I do know that there are a number of people that are still in very critical condition. So I think the first thing we should do is say Psalms, and then we'll say a Mishaberach for the recovery of those individuals. And after that, we can say a memorial prayer for the people whose lives were lost. And then we'll move on to the second part of the program, which is going to be more of a discussion base. So the way I'd like to do this is I have this here on the screen. I have it in Hebrew and I have it in English. And I think what I'm going to do for this moment, I'm just going to mute everybody. And then everybody can say along the psalm however you want. You can say it in Hebrew, you can say it in English, or you can just take a moment to say your own prayers as well. So I'm going to start with Psalm 130. Shira malos mimamakim krasicha Adonai. Adonai shema v'koli yemes necha kashuvos v'kol tachanunai. Im avonos tishmor ya Adonai mi'amod. Ki imachas licha leman tivarei. Kvisi Adonai kivaso nafshi v'lidvoro hochalti. Nafshi l'Adonai mishomrim laboker shomrim laboker. Echel Yisrael el Adonai ki im Adonai hachesed v'harbei imo fidus. Hu yifeh es Yisrael mikol avonosav. Now we'll continue with Psalm 121. So again, you can say it in Hebrew, you can say it in English, or you can just listen as well. Shir lamalos eso einai el haharim me'ayin yovo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai yosei shamayim va'aretz. Al yitein namot raglecha yonum shomrecha. Yinei lo yonum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomerecha. Adonai tzilecha al yad yeminecha. Yom HaShemesh lo yakeka v'yareach b'layla. Adonai yishmorcha mikora yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzescha uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam. Okay, now I'd like to continue, and I'm going to recite the Mishaberach prayer in Hebrew, and then maybe if somebody wants to volunteer to say it in English. How about you, Bob? That's usually your job. It's on the screen, so you can follow along. You can say it in English afterwards. Mishaberach Avosenu Avram Yitzchak Yaakov Moshe va'Aaron David u'Shlomo hu yirapeh es hacholim ba'avur shekol hakahal mispa'alim ba'avuram. V'schar zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimale rachamim aleihem v'hachlimam l'raposam v'hachazikam v'hachayosam. V'yishlach lahem mehera refuah shlema min hashamayim v'ramach ivarehem u'shesod yidehem v'soch shar cholei Yisrael refuas hanefesh refuas haguf v'nomar amen. Yes.
You want me to say it?
Yeah, say it in English, please.
May he who bless our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses and Aaron, David and Solomon, may he heal the sick on behalf of the entire community who is praying on their behalf in this merit. May the Holy One, blessed is he, be filled with mercy for them, to restore them, to heal them, and to cure them, to strengthen them, and to invigorate them. And may he hasten to send them forever, to send them from heaven a complete recovery to his 248 bodily parts and 365 veins among the other sick people of Israel. A healing of the spirit and a healing of the body. And let us say amen.
Amen. Okay, and then what I want us to do now is we can actually rise for this, is I'd like to say the Keil Malei Rachamim prayer, which is the prayer that we say for people who have passed away. Normally we insert specific names over here, and we insert the names of the people that lost their lives, but since we don't have that exact list in the Hebrew names, it's more complicated. We'll just say it in a general sense, and we'll have in mind all those people. El Malei Rachamim, Shochem B'Ramim, Hameteh Menucha Nechona, Kanfei Hashchina, B'Ma'alot Kedoshim, Taharim, Kisar, Rakia, Mazirim, Es Nishmatam, Shehalach L'Olamam, Ba'avur, Shedazvut Tzedakah, Ba'ad Hazkarat Nishmasam, B'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchasam, L'Chem Ba'al Rachamim, Yastirehu B'Seiser, K'nafav L'Olamo, B'Yitzor B'Yitzor Chayim, Es Nishmatam, Adonai Nachlasam, V'Yanuch, Al Mishkavam, Amen. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of the Shekhinah in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as the resplendence of the firmament to the souls of the departed who have gone to their eternal world. For charity has been donated in remembrance of their souls. May their peace, may their place of rest be in Gan Eden. Therefore, may the All-Merciful One shelter them with the cover of his wings forever, and bind their souls in the bond of life. The Lord is their heritage. May they rest in their resting place in peace. And let us say amen. Amen. Okay, so I think that the purpose of this meeting and this gathering is for us to come together, as I said in the text that I set out, for us to come together as a community, because Ali and I are not there. Obviously, being away for us has been challenging, not to be there with everybody and not to be able to be supportive to people in person. But I think that as a community, I think I'm hearing from a lot of people, and I'm speaking to people, and I'm hearing that everybody is having their own challenge in how to process this, and how to, I don't know if it's make sense of what happened or find comfort in light of what happened. I think there are a lot of people, I don't know if people are on this call, but people that I've spoken to that saw things that were very, very difficult for them to see, and are trying as hard as they can to unsee them. But there's certain things that once you see them, you just can't really unsee them. And I think that what I'd like to do first is just give people a chance to share what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they experienced, and we can take maybe 20 minutes or so and give people a chance to do that. Then what I would like to try to do is to try to talk a little bit about what might be perhaps like a deeper at some of the core of what happened and why these types of things continue to happen. And then maybe as a group together, we can hopefully come up with some plan of action, something that we can do together as a community, that way we can feel that we did something, positive in response to this, or reaction to this. So the first part of, like I said, would just be to give people a chance. Anybody who wants to just unmute yourself, feel free to jump in. You can either share what you experienced or how you experienced this terrible massacre, or you can or you can talk about what you've been struggling with, and this is just an open forum for anybody who wants to share or respond to other people.
David?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally disgusted. I mean, I really think what's happening is that our country is rotting from the inside out, and I don't hold that much hope for the foreseeable future. And I'm also disappointed in the steps that, well, I'll be specific. I think that the Central Avenue Synagogue, there was an event that this guy came into the synagogue on a Passover program with a backpack and a yarmulke, and they supposedly patted down the backpack, and a couple of the parishioners, one who has a gun, confronted them and asked them to leave. I don't know if it was ever reported to the police. It was reported to the police after the fact, after he killed 7 people. And then the guy had actually been seen in Rabbi Shanowitz's house. And the level of security that the synagogue has is pathetic. And I'm not sure that any synagogue is prepared for what could happen to us. I mean, you know, after an event like that, to have one guard with a handgun, maybe, who's really positioned in a poor spot. I mean, that's irresponsible. And one of the people who's in charge of security yesterday, I didn't even go. I mean, I'm just so disgusted with them. Paula said that basically they were told they're doing everything that they can. The suggestions that they get are irrelevant, impractical. Don't give us any more. And what they're looking for is people to be greeters to try to identify people who are not congregants. I mean, am I the only person that gets it, that with a high-powered rifle, there's no, greet people? You have to have a perimeter, and you have to have a weapon that can deal with this. I mean, it just put us at so much jeopardy. And listen, in my opinion, Central Avenue Synagogue is the face of Judaism in Highland Park. It's right out there. The rabbi dresses funny. They have the menorah lit. I mean, I think that probably the Chaim Center is a lower value target because it's not the face of Judaism. But
What?
Huh?
What do you mean? Of course, we're the face of Judaism. Deerfield, we're definitely the face of Judaism. We have a huge sign right in front of our store that says, "Look." I mean, I know it's not as much on the front of this.
Well, we can argue about that. I feel safer because I don't think it's out there the way that I'm not talking about.
That's true.
This is not ego.
But it's out there. No. I don't mean it from that point of view. I mean it from. I'm also worried about that, and I think that once you have a sign up that says something Jewish, you're in the face, whether you're the face or the second face.
Okay,
the
all the worse from my perspective, because then we're in jeopardy too. These people come ready to rock and roll. I mean, you see what this guy did? And he could have gotten away. He could have gotten through the perimeter, but for some inexplicable reason, he came back or never left. We're in huge jeopardy, and our leadership, at least the leadership at Chabad, who should know better, who's probably got access to, people who really know what they're doing, put us in jeopardy because there was 2 events that was not shared, and they didn't even take proper precautions. I mean, is that consistent with the Torah? What's that all about? It's a failure of leadership.
So, I mean, I would, I think there's a lot of anger when something like this happens. But, the way I look at it is we can look around and say all the things that should have happened. But I kind of look at it on a personal level as a call that whether the individuals who saw this person or see anything wrong, I think what we have to do individually to help cope with this is find a way you could help, right? So if you're angry, you're upset, find a way to help. Volunteer to be at a security committee, volunteer for an anti-gun lobby. If you personally suspect somebody, let's not be so passive. If we suspect somebody, we have to report people. So we got to take it personally to try to help the situation. And anger obviously is definitely part of this. We're all angry, we're all frustrated, but you have to find a way to help if we have any hope that it can get better.
I brought this up to the powers that be many times, and I also talked to some of the guards. I said, you're not in a good position to see all the entrances. And one of them said, oh, where does the other guard stand? I mean, it's a complete, you can't, rose-colored glasses is not the time for this. This is ineptitude, dropping the ball. We have a real problem. Platitudes aren't going to do it. And you know what? Am I going to be a greeter? I'm 75 years old. I don't have a weapon. I'm not going to be a greeter to get my freaking head blown off. That's ridiculous. What I will do is if there was an assessment or there had to be X number of dollars to provide real security, fine. I'm not going to be a greeter and be the first one to get it. I mean, come on.
Right. Okay. I'll comment on these things after everyone speaks a little bit. So I hear what you're saying. I'm going to hold off on making any comments about that until we hear from more people, and then I'll try to make a response to that. Does anybody else want to share what, it doesn't have to be about this issue, about the security issue. It's anything. What your experience, anything that you feel that you need to say or share or would like to share or would like to be supported on. This is the opportunity for that. Well,
I think, David, I was with Mike and Andrea yesterday at the rally, and they had a number of great speakers there. And there was a guy from Waukegan saying, it's not just the Highland Park problem. It's a USA problem, and it's a community problem. And the moms in Waukegan grieve just as much for their kids that get shot and killed as they do in Highland Park. So it's, we can be angry about it, but I think we have to be supportive for the victims, if you know a victim or a family of a victim. And I think, we have our votes, and that's where we have to stand up and actually do something about it. I think people shouldn't have assault rifles who are individuals. Like the Army has them, the IDF has them. Individuals don't need to have them. And we have to vote for the people who are going to get this done, and also be supported for the people who are trying to heal from this.
And as a mom perspective and a teacher perspective, they say when you feel something in your gut, you need to speak up and you need to say something. And my kids all said it was just a matter of time. They couldn't imagine that it happened in our community, but it now happened. And now everybody is rallying behind. Not that it hasn't happened in every other place, but it happened. And, it is a sadness. My heart is heavy. We've gone to these parades throughout all these years, but this can happen anywhere. And, there's so many issues that is being brought up with mental health. It's just, it's heart-wrenching, so I think that people really need to speak up.
Yeah, and I think you have to, we talked a little bit about it when Gotti had the Zoom. You have to make sure your kids are okay. You have to be there. And it's not just about guns. It is about mental health, like Melissa's saying. And you have to be there for kids and make sure that they're okay and that they live a healthy life, because that's half the battle.
Unfortunately, we didn't grow up like this. I saw a little bit of it where I grew up, where we had metal detectors in my high school. There's so many issues right now. This is a huge, big picture. So I don't know.
Anybody want to share the experience that you had that you maybe feel like you could use some community support on?
Rabbi, I joined late, but
For us,
the conversation really stimulated some thinking that I've found myself kind of stuck on a little bit. I think we're living in a time when traditional values are being dissipated.
The Fed's tracking model is saying that
We've always required the presumption that social expectations, that what it is to be an individual in a community is something we learned at home. But there was always a kind of backstop to that where the community would be basically singing off the same sheet of music with regard to what's right and what's wrong. And what we find now is we're going through a period of time where there has been a dissolution of the family structure and the community structure. And that is really, really the problem that we're facing right now. And I think a thought that I had when I went to the Highland Park deal the other night is that as an individual, as a Jew, one of the important things that we can do is to represent a standard of empathy, of humanity, because that's really what we're lacking. We're so prone to use talking points and abstractions to establish a kind of point of orientation that we've lost a sense of the traditional values that have always guided us. And I think a part of that is the political system has devolved into a position where there is this sense of throwing away a concept of accountability and an optimism about what we can do as individuals. I think that needs to be organized a little bit, but those are some of the thoughts that I've struggled with since this thing happened.
thanks, Les.
I had an interesting perspective because Andrew and I were in northern Israel, the northernmost part of Israel when this happened. And we could see Lebanon, we could see Syria, and, being in that part of the area, those people that live there have been under a threat of violence their whole lives. And yet I felt safer there at that moment than I did at home when this has happened. And as the point is made, this can happen everywhere. And so it's a community effort, not just to Highland Park. And I also think that unfortunately, these events are a symptom of a sick country. And I think we have to recognize that this is because of intolerance to other people, hatred, desperation. And I think, again, we have to try to find ways to heal our country and to accept others. And there's some practical things. I mean, there's the individual. Every society is going to have mentally disturbed individuals, but if we can decrease the level of hatred and intolerance, and then on the practical side of it is, other countries have people probably like this, but we just have way too many guns. When you get a disturbed, angry, mentally unstable person, and it's easy to get a gun, I mean, that compounds the problem. So there's long-term solutions, which is really, we have to really work on our society, and find ways, to heal this country. But there's practical things that can happen sooner. And I think we have to find ways, whatever you do, pick a spot to help one of those areas.
Thank you.
I agree with you, Michael, about the whole gun situation. I was there. I was at the parade. I was probably 50 yards away from the shooter. You know, like you said, there's always going to be mental health issues. But for people to easily have the tools to be able to carry out their wicked fantasies, I guess. It's just too easy. I mean, and I am a gun owner for 30 years. I'm a gun carrier. And I mean, this isn't a new thought that I've had. This isn't because I now that I'm exposed, I feel this way. I felt this way for years. You know, when I got my first gun, I joined the NRA for, you know, right when I bought my gun. And when my membership ran out, I didn't renew because I thought these guys are nuts. All they want is my money, and all they want is for everybody to have a gun for any reason, with no background checks, nothing. I mean, I remember, you know, I'd go to gun stores and look at guns, and I remember a guy asking me for my gun card. And then he said, you know, I apologize, I have to ask you this because, you know, we live in a communist state. And I'm like, no, I'm okay giving you my gun card. I should have to show you my gun card, at least. I mean, it's just nuts. So we need to, my neighbor is organizing, and Michael, I want to get you involved with this, or any other healthcare people on the line. She's organizing, creating a group, maybe an association, to counter the NRA of healthcare workers that are sick of having to deal with this. You know, creating an association to, you know, I mean, I can't imagine that it can't be a tremendous amount of people. But it's just, I mean, we know what the problem is, right? I mean, that's the problem. We're the only country, well, now something happened in South Africa today, but I mean, you know, here it's becoming normalized. Hate is becoming normalized. Conspiracy theories, radical thinking is becoming normalized. So we have to protect against that, right? Protect ourselves. And protect ourselves by taking the tools away from those. I mean, this guy, I was actually happy to see that the shooter bought his gun legally and passed the background checks, because that shows that something needs to be done. Something's wrong. This guy clearly shouldn't have had this weapon. So people shouldn't have to experience going to a 4th of July parade or any other gathering that's meant to be peaceful and have to experience what I experienced, what my wife experienced, what many other families experienced, a lot worse. We just were witnesses to what happened. People, I mean, I saw people, I dealt with people who were blown away physically. I mean, we know it's not right, and we know what the problem is. You know, people talk about, you know, I mean, we you know, people vote for certain reasons, right? Because it's better for their pocketbook, or because they want to, I don't know, many different reasons, but I think this is the number one reason that we need to make a change, right? I mean, you know, the Republican Party, I'm sorry, but they talk about, you know, making America great again, but their specific policies are not making America great in that sense. I mean, if people have to worry about, you know, if I have to worry about walking 2 miles from my home, and there are many other people that can't walk out their front door in this country. It's not just about, like Steve was talking about, it's not just about here. It's, you know, I think in Chicago this weekend, obviously more people died at the parade. But sorry to bring politics into it, but that's just the fact. These people can change their minds also. These people who for years have been supporting the NRA and have just made their policies based on the NRA. There's got to be a conscience there somewhere, right? So if you in the past have supported these people, maybe contact them. So that's all I have to say right now. Thanks, David.
David, I don't think it's not like a mental health problem. Like if all the schizophrenics and all the people with bipolar problems and anxiety and conflict resolution issues were healed tomorrow. There was a whole thing on NPR about what is helpful and what has science, what has got evidence-based as far as gun control goes and what doesn't. And the consensus was that mental health itself is not the problem, because most people with mental health issues don't go out and shoot people. And what they do is they kill themselves. So maybe if we could control guns, it would help people who have depression, but it's not going to stop people like this. I think what Bobby's saying is that it's the hate. You can be as crazy as you want. You may kill yourself, but you're not going to kill your neighbor who you don't know. So I think what we're saying is right. It's guns. And we had a big problem. We let this thing go for so long. We have more guns than we have people. Even if they did not manufacture another assault rifle, right? We still have, let's say, 350 million guns out there. There's going to be a backlog. And you know what the NRA is trying to stop. A listing of guns so that they could be taken away. That's exactly, they build fences around their agenda, just like Judaism builds fences around ours. That if you can keep a AR-15 or AR-15 type weapon, then it's going to prevent people from being taking their rifles away, from their handguns away. We got a huge problem. We've sat by and allowed there to be more guns than people with a lot of hate. And that's just a toxic glue for mass murder. The problem's us. The problem is us. Hashem gave us free will, and we're taking full advantage of it. And he's not going to bail us.
One second. Jeff, I just want to make sure that everybody who has not had a chance to share something has a chance to share. So I'm just gonna make sure that everyone has that. Does anybody else have anything in a different direction? Because I'm going to try to bring this together in a little bit, but I want to make sure that people that
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I'm born and raised in Highland Park and came back and raised my family here. My daughter had a freshman and sophomore English class with the shooter, and I just want to say these young kids are not okay. They don't know what to do. They're trying to stay together. They're going for the therapy sessions, and they're scared. And my daughter's 21 and she's in college, and these kids they're scared to go out. They're scared to go anywhere. They're worried it's going to happen again. And I think something needs to be done to help the younger kids. I know us all as adults are a little bit stronger, but I'm worried for the younger generation and the kids.
Are there resources at their schools? I mean, they're out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, Highland Park High School just extended for a week. So yeah, I think.
Even me, after what I went through, I was encouraged by basically everybody who either knew my story or, even, the police. He said I had to go and see someone and get counseling and just talk to someone who specializes in this type of trauma. It's out there. I went to the high school. I went twice. you know, the police were telling me that, you know, they're trained for this kind of stuff, and they still are required to get counseling after going through something like this. So, and I know, you know, you're not referring to people necessarily who were at the event, but just in general who are just fearful. There are resources out there, and unfortunately, the people that need them have to seek them out. So they're not going to knock on their door, but it's out there. And I agree. You know, they're scared. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, when I was, I was a senior in high school at Highland Park High School when Lori Dan was like one of the first school shooters.
Right, I remember
we
that.
didn't even know it was an option, right? That was something that can be done, right? So I can't imagine this being, you know, week after week happening and kids seeing it who are in school. I mean, my kids have told me I have a 14-year-old and 17-year-old. They tell me that it's something that they think about, that they're worried about. So it's just not natural.
I just wanted to add one additional perspective, and that is if you follow the foreign press, it's not just in the US. So you can see just in the past 2 weeks in Denmark, in France, in Germany, in Sweden, there were these types of massacres. And so obviously Denmark has 3 million people. So it doesn't get as much publicity, but it's not just the US.
I just wanted to respond to the counseling issue. I'm on staff at North Shore, and tomorrow I'm going to reach out and find out what resources that we're developing as a healthcare system for counseling, and I'll try to compose a list and send it out for some resources for counseling, because I know that we're creating a response to it.
That's great.
Rabbi David, I have a question. I don't know if there's a real answer to this, but I'm wondering how to remain hopeful in a time that feels so incredibly hopeless, and how to maintain faith during a time like this, if that's even possible.
That's a super question. Super question. I think that, you know, I think the way, well, you know, so I'll make some comments at the end, but let's see if anybody else wants to say anything else before I jump in.
That woman who just mentioned that you know, it happens. It's not just a U.S. problem. Proportionately, there's no comparison. Okay, so I don't know what your point is. Is your point that guns are not the problem? So I'm just wondering what you think the solution might be, because number-wise, it's completely out of control here in the United States. I mean, you talked about a couple incidents around the world. It's a couple times a month here.
We've had 300 mass shootings. That's more than 2 a day this year, and that doesn't count the random individual shootings that are happening in all the cities. So yeah, I think it does happen everywhere. I think percentage-wise, it's way higher here, and again, a lot of us feel the difference is the guns.
Rabbi David?
Yeah.
I just like to say a couple of things. First of all, I very much agree with what Les said at the beginning, that at the core of this, it's the dissolution of the family and the values of the overall community that are feeding into this. Obviously, the gun problem is the immediate problem that we need to address, but there's all these other issues. My 11-year-old grandson said to his mother the evening of July 4th, he said, "Mom, I thought it was safe here, but I guess I was wrong." Now, if kids are going to grow up feeling that their environment is not safe, first of all, we need to make it safer for them, practically on the short term and on the long term by strengthening our communities and our families and all the above. you.
Okay, so I'm listening to what everybody is saying, and for the most part, I would say I really agree with so much of what I'm hearing. Starting with Jeff's comment, I absolutely think that we need to, as shuls, as communities, as Jewish centers, we need to address the security issue in a very, very serious way. I think that the very last thing you mentioned, Jeff, about this, which was, you said, if there were an assessment that everybody had to pay something to, cover security costs, that you would pay that. So I actually think that the issue is money. That's what I think, because with enough money, if there were no issue of money, if there were an unlimited blank check handed to every Jewish organization that says, here's your blank check, go do whatever you need to do for security, every organization, every community, every shul, every center would hire and put together a plan that involved the perimeter and multiple guards and armed guards, and the shuls and the centers would be safe. The problem is that most of the shuls and the centers, maybe not the larger, congregations, but certainly the smaller ones and the Orthodox ones, like, for example, Chaim Center or Chabad, are small communities, and currently don't have a budget, that allows for security. So I think that one of the things has to be that all the shuls have to levy a security assessment from every single person that's coming into the shul. If you want to come to the shul, you're more than welcome to, but there's a, whatever it is, $500 a year security tax that we're charging everybody, so that we can hire, a guard or two guards or whatever is necessary to be able to make sure that an active shooter couldn't come anywhere near our building. So I think that we need to discuss that. Rabbi Gadi and I can discuss that, and there's already stuff, I know Zalman's involved, and we're working on the security stuff at the Chaim Center, but I think we need to take it very seriously. I mean, I know there were threats in Texas and San Antonio today, and it's going on everywhere. It's not going to get better, and it's not going to be safe, and this is going to keep happening, and there are going to be shuls that are going to be attacked, and I think that we need to be, address that in a very, very serious way. I think that I think that what Steve said about supporting victims and families of victims, I think is very important. That if we know anybody who we can reach out to, just to be there as any form of support for people that have either lost somebody or have somebody in their family that was injured, or kids or whatever it might be. Very important to put ourselves out there for people. I absolutely agree with what Susie confirmed, or agreed with, which is that at the core of this had a lot to do with, we've lost our way as a community, as families. The values that we all grew up with have eroded, and they're not there anymore. And without those values, whether you call them religious values or moral, ethical values, they've taken such a hit in the last, generation or two, that they're almost non-existent. And without that, it becomes very, very difficult to piece together and to rebuild a healthy, moral, stable society. So I think we need to address that. I think that, okay, Gadi just posted that's really important, that Rabbi Gadi wrote that our security committee is, but I just lost it. It's Rabbi Gadi and Liz, Hagan, and Zalman. We're working together right now on securing grants for adding protection, bulletproofing windows, armed guards, and monitoring. So kol hakavod Rabbi Gadi for heading that up. And obviously whatever I can do to help, please, call me for that, because that's very, very important. So you want to add something about that?
Well, yesterday we were sitting and learning with Susie, and there was a man in the outer area looking at all our signs and things like that. And he had his hands in his pockets, and we immediately locked the door, and Zalman was out so fast, and, asked him if he could help this man, and the man said he was just waiting for the dentist appointment, but everybody's on very high alert.
Yeah.
At L'Chaim
At
Center.
L'Chaim Center, you know.
I think that's a big key, I think that's a big
Yeah.
part of it. And I think that, that we all do need to be keeping our eyes open for all of these types of things and looking out for them. But we also, that's an important step, but there's got to be a full blown plan, how to deal with this.
Yeah, they're
Well,
working on it, which
L'Chaim
is
Center, I
great.
think, is doing a great job with security. More
So
needs to be
far,
done,
yeah.
but they have it in mind on a daily basis, really.
Yes.
Agadi is all over security. Solomon,
Yes.
they're
I think
doing.
that needs to keep moving forward.
Right.
Yes, but so far it's been really, really.
And as
good.
far as I'm concerned, if I think if the congregants and the people that are attending classes and events and programs need to contribute financially to that, I think everybody would be willing to do that, because we want to be there, we want to be there safely, and and that's something that we need to continue to move forward. I want to address the gun issue, and I want to just share with you my feeling about all of this, because I think obviously this is the biggest issue that's come up, and I anticipated it would be. I just for the record, I want to share that I am also very, very disgusted about, the stories about this beast, this evil person who had the cops to his house many times for a suicide call, for a threatening to kill his family call, and for many other calls, who was flagged by the state police or whoever, was able to go and get a FOIA card and get a gun. Makes no sense. Those laws have to change, obviously. My friend Chris Goodsnyder, who's my old next door neighbor, he lives next door to Agadi, who many of you know, he ran for. Yeah, I want to talk about that, Mike. Hang on for a second. That's important. I want to talk about that idea in a second. But he ran for city government, whatever, in Deerfield. He made a proposal which just is very, very simple, which is that if you look at these shootings, almost all these shootings have been carried out by people males between 18 and 25, right? So if you just add another level of approval for a man between 18 and 35 has to have a face-to-face interview with the state trooper, right? That's just a simple example of how how the government can be regulating this a little bit more, so that the wrong people don't end up with guns. I also think that it was said, and I think Steve said it, others have said it also, that these assault rifles are military weapons, and they should not be legal, and they shouldn't be able to be purchased by individuals, period. Okay, but I give my full, complete, and total support to what Bobby said, to what Mike said, to what Steve said. And I think that the laws need to change, and we need to be making the laws change, and we need to be working to make the laws change. But I think that if the conversation begins and ends with guns, then we're missing something much deeper. Okay, I want to share with you, my mom sent me this. She sent me this. She posted, I don't know, maybe Mom, maybe you can tell me exactly where you saw this, but it must have been a post somewhere on Facebook or something. But somebody posted this, and he said, I read this, it resonated with me. I asked my son, who's in high school, why would someone do this? His answer was better than any politician or even adults that are discussing the subject. He even gave a clear solution, but I fear it will never happen. This was his reply. Mom, it's not about guns. It's about attention. The kids who does this, the kids who do these types of things, they see the news. They need attention. The media gives it to them for months. A person goes from being ignored at home and school, feeling as if the whole world finally sees him. Next, kids do not know how to talk. We get on phones and we communicate. There's no social interaction. People my age cannot express how they feel or that something is wrong. If people want this to stop, it's not about guns. It's about seeing kids, talking to them. Adults need to see kids and listen to them. They need to teach kids to get off the phones and to look up. each person needs to be seen. The media needs to know that this attention will be seen as a way to express themselves in the world, and things like this will keep happening. Maybe we should listen to our children. Every adult, teacher, parent, neighbor, anyone should talk to a child today. If we want the world to change, it has to start with us talking and being human to each other. We as adults outnumber them as a whole, but we are caught up in our own lives to really see them. To talk to a child today, 5 minutes can change a person's life. Okay, so I think that when I read that, it really made a lot of sense to me, and I actually did a lot of research, since over the weekend and since today, and I found some really interesting things. Like, for example, there was a study that was done that asked the question about why do shootings occur? Students say that revenge is clearly the major reason for school shootings. So they asked a group of students, like, why did these things take place? So 87% of them agreed that these shooters, why are they doing it? They want to get back at those who hurt them. Right? If you look at these people and they interviewed people, by the way, who carried out these massacres and these shootings, who didn't die, and the FBI interviewed them. And why did they do these things? So they want to hurt the people that have hurt them. They want to get back. It's revenge. Other kids pick on them, make fun of them, or bully them. Right? Those are the main reasons. These kids that are doing these things, I mean, they have mental health problems. It's easy to get a gun, right? And of course it's easy to get a gun. But unfortunately, as I think Jeff mentioned, even if we were to change the gun laws tomorrow and made it illegal to buy, a rifle or an automatic weapon or whatever, unfortunately, it's not hard for anyone to get one. You can make it. We need to make it harder. We need to make it a lot harder. But if somebody wants to get a gun, they will get a gun, no matter how hard we make it. So that can't be the beginning and the end of the discussion. It's an important and critical part of the discussion, but it has to go deeper than this. It has to go deeper than this. People basically, the research that I was doing, and what I was reading about, I read a lot about it today and yesterday for Shabbos, that basically it starts with people that are, that these adolescents that are having fantasies of revenge in their mind for either being abused in their own homes or being ignored or just being not noticed or being picked on or being bullied or whatever is going on in their lives. And they may not even be objective reality. They might be things that are, that they've imagined in their minds, but they have these vengeful fantasies, and then they give life to these vengeful fantasies, and then they start seeking out people who can support them. Okay, they look for they have, like, for example, they have fan sites, fan chats, for people that have carried out previous school shooters, right? For example, the Columbine killers, Eric Harrison, Dylan Klebold, right? They are considered to be, heroes to many people, and they have fan sites where you can go and you can, worship these people. And what happened when they carried out these terrible things? They're on the cover of magazines and front pages of newspapers for weeks. So people feel like, this is how I can get noticed. This is how I can make a difference in this world. So people are, and then if you add into it any level of mental illness and unbalance, then these fantasies can become obsessions, and then they join chat rooms or violence promoting websites or whatever it might be, and these fantasies become even more important, and they take on a life, and then they get supporters, and they find people that are supporting them in these horrible dark web sites, and then it can just spiral, and before you know it. Now, one thing that they've noticed is that in many of these cases, they look back and they can find clear points where the shooters, these people that are carrying out these shootings, have cried out for help. Okay, where they've left messages in chats, or they've left messages to friends saying things like, I'm going to go on a rampage. I'm going to kill people. And even asking, like, help me. I don't know what to do with these feelings that I'm having. And people don't take them seriously. You know, they
Hey,
visit.
David, can I just say something?
Yeah.
Can I just say something? I understand what you're saying, and I think, you know, I don't think guns are the end all be all. I mean, I have access to. I mean, I can get hold of an AR-15. You have to be out of your freaking mind to do what these people are doing. Okay, so we know mental illness is the root of it, right? But it's so easy to get the tools to be able to cause the devastation.
I
So
agree.
that's the issue.
No,
I mean,
Bobby,
so
I agree with you
gun,
100%.
it's a huge part of it. It's a tremendous part of it. But yes,
I
it's not
agree.
the end all be all. We have to
I
work
agree.
on everything. So
No, I
but
agree. I agree, but the word tools is the key word. The gun is the tool, right? And it has to be impossible for people that are deranged or that have mental illness to get those tools. You know, I anything that we can do to make it harder and harder and harder for those people, there should be back. Look, in Israel, these things don't happen. Why? Because you can't get a gun in this country until you have been vetted thoroughly, up and down and inside and out. And if you have any record whatsoever, not just convictions or committing commitments to mental facilities, but any sort of, you know, they interview people, they interview neighbors, right? That, I agree that all has to take place. And I don't care about this, you know, civil liberties, everybody has a right to have a gun. No, I don't believe that's true. People that are sick and that are deranged and that are going to kill people do not have a right to have a gun, and they should stop having guns. And I agree with all of that. But what I'm trying to talk about is, I don't necessarily agree that every one of these people started off with mental illness. I think that a lot of them started off with intense loneliness, intense isolation, and then, no, I don't make a difference. I don't matter. My life is meaningless. And then they find a group that says, hey, man, we got you. You're going to make a difference. This is how you're going to be. This is how you're going to make your mark, and you're going to be remembered. And all of a sudden, I feel there's such a breakdown between human interaction and human communication that I feel is at a core. So I think that both components need to be thoroughly addressed. I really do.
You're 100% right, because the police were out at this guy's house when he said he was going to kill everybody, kill himself. And yeah, they reported it to the state. Where was the report to a mental health facility to get this kid intense mental health effort a year, 2 years ago when they were out there? You know, that's, we have to support, besides supporting the lobbies to get rid of guns, we have to support the lobbies that are going to support and help these kids, because that's the problem.
Right.
Guns are just a tool. Yeah.
Both are the problem. The guns are the tool, and those tools have to be made impossible to get for people that are going to kill other people with them. I don't know if it's possible to make them impossible, because even if you made them completely illegal, you can still get them, but they have to be made as hard as humanly possible to get. Because you're right, if this guy didn't have a rifle, let's say he had a handgun, you know, I mean, it still would have been horrible, but he shouldn't be able to get a handgun either. But still, it would have been a different scene.
And someone out there they're going to make the argument that, well, he could have taken his car and ran it down the parade route. And yes, I mean, absolutely, there's all these other methods, right? Yeah. But let's just start. Like, I'm sick of hearing that. Like, if we allow gay marriage, then people are going to be able to, you know, marry their dogs and their goats. It's like, come on, just, you know, don't go. Just let's take care of the issue now of this piece that we could, you know, that we not that we could solve, but you know what I'm saying.
But let's not make the mistake of letting the conversation begin and end with guns either. Because if we do that, we're not really going to solve the problem.
I don't think there's anyone out there that thinks it begins and ends with guns. I can't imagine.
I hope not. But what I would like to try to do is, you know, with the few minutes that we have, is try to think of something. Right now, we have 32 participants on this call. It's actually more because there are couples, and, you know, let's say we have 40 people here. We have 40 of the brightest minds on the North Shore. Okay, what can we do as a community, L'Chaim Center? What, you know, and we don't need to absolutely come up with an answer right now, but let's think about it. Let's spend 5 minutes discussing it. What can we do to be part of the solution. Like it was like Mike was saying in the beginning, you know, yes, we feel anger. Yes, we feel frustration, but let's turn that anger and frustration into being part of the solution. So what can we do? And I would like to address it on the gun level. I think everybody should lobby their politicians and their representatives and write letters like my friend Chris Goodschneider did, who, by the way, who isn't firearms owner also, you know, but he's you know, he feels that like we all feel about these guns, and he lobbied his politicians, and his proposal is actually being considered, right? So I think we need to all do that personally, individually, send those letters to our representatives, but what can we do as a community to get at the deeper core of the problem, which is seeing each other, supporting each other, and especially young people.
Yeah, I mean, I think your letter that kid wrote about attention and spending 5 minutes, an adult recognizing, I think maybe we should look for a social service agency to partner with, and we all can volunteer, and in whatever capacity with children where we spend some time, whether it's tutoring, listening to them, some kind of a big brother program we can partner with, where we can be that adult and maybe a troubled kid's life, and finding it, you know, and set up a relationship between the two agencies where we can enlist volunteers with Plymouth and L'Chaim to partner with that agency.
I think that's amazing. I think that's an amazing idea, because I mean, literally, Mike, if you think about it, what you're saying is, I mean, it could literally, your relationship with a troubled kid could literally be the difference that could stop another shooting, right? Because if this troubled kid, if no one cares about him, if no one's recognizing him, his parents might not be, his teachers might not be, if no one sees him, he could end up getting a gun or another weapon and doing this because, hey, you know what? I'll be on the newspaper. I'll be on Time Magazine or whatever magazine. You know, I'll be all over the social media sites. You know, but if I have a relationship with him and you matter, you make a difference. You're worth it to me to invest my time in you because I care about you because you're a good person. You know, I actually wanted to go back to Laura's comment in the beginning about, you know, a message of faith. I think that it's I think the message of faith here is that people are good. People are good. We believe in the Torah that people are good, that we are all created in the divine image. Every human being is created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of Hashem. We all have the divine goodness inside of us. And the problem is that for so many reasons that humanity, that goodness has been lost. It's been buried. It's been disconnected from reality. But I do think that the message of hope and the message of faith is that I think that we can start as individuals helping people to see the goodness inside themselves, helping people to believe in themselves, helping people to know that they matter, that they make a difference. And that's something that each and every one of us can do in a real way, you know? So I think that it's hard to have a real message of hope and faith when these things go on. And I do think that we live in a country that is very sick and that has a lot of problems, and that it's very scary. And I think for kids, you know, like Stephanie was saying, I think for kids, it's very scary for kids. You know, like Susie was saying, like you were saying about your grandson, kids are scared. They don't feel safe, you know, and that's terrible because we didn't grow up that way. You know, and I think that we need to help the situation. And I think the way to do that is by recognizing and seeing and appreciating the goodness and the godliness inside of each other. It can start with our spouses, it can start with our children, but it has to go further. And I like Mike's idea about partnering with the social services. You know, maybe that we can find a way, you know, to sign up as a partner where we can create a team of volunteers. I think that's a great idea, Drew. I think we should talk about that at our staff meeting tomorrow and put that into action right away. I think that's an excellent, start seeking out a social service organization that we can partner with and put together a team of, you know, volunteers. L'Chaim Center has 20 volunteers that are willing to go, you know, mentor or sit with or tutor or just go play basketball with some kids, you know. Yeah. Last, Adrian, I think you put it, was that your virtual hand that went up there?
It's actually less.
Rabbi,
you make such beautiful logic, this whole thing. There are all kinds of things to be done, and so many of them have been covered in these conversations. But there's one thing that I'm thinking about as I'm listening to this, that if we can embrace within ourselves this sense of a responsibility to project a level of humanity and empathy, that will inform all the rest of the things that we might be able to do with our money, with standing on a soapbox and arguing a point. But it begins with understanding. I think as Jews, we have an obligation to be an example, to set an example of empathy and concern. You said it so eloquently. I think you hit it right on the head. In addition to everything else, the real nuts and bolts of changing our culture and our society, if we begin with the first step of being more conscious of the fact that it is so important that we represent a level of empathy and respect for human life, that's a good place to start.
And I think, Les, I think you're 100% right. And I think it's important to put that into a practical, actual step, which I think where what you're saying and what Michael's suggesting, they dovetail very nicely, because behind it is, yeah, we are Jews and we care about people and we show up for people. But it's not enough just to say that and feel it. Let's do it.
So I want to say one more thing. Like, we're the good people in this. Everyone getting together and looking for help and wanting to talk. We're the good people. But realistically, I hate saying this, and you guys are maybe going to hate me, but nothing is going to change. Absolutely nothing is going to change. ARs are still going to be able to be purchased. No one is going to change it. Nobody at all is going to do anything different. We're going to become another red dot on the map. These shootings are going to continue to happen, and the good people are going to try and change laws, and nothing is going to happen.
But Steph, you're going to want to try to help and make that change. That's
One person at a, all it is
one person
at a time.
I agree. Steph, I
And
agree. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Melissa. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, like, David, I'm listening to you. Yes, it starts at home. It starts next, like kids go to school. It starts within the teachers in the classroom too. You see kids, I see kids who may have issues. You notice, that there's kids that have red flags. You need to be able to speak up. You need to say something. There was a program that after endless kids, we kept seeing, at GBN suicides, Glenbrook North High School suicides, that kids, that this was a big issue. There was a program that they were trying to get started. The high school was really not really helpful, and it was called Never Alone at North, where a student could call in and talk to somebody. It was such an amazing, great program that should have happened. Go ahead, you can jump in.
The problem is the schools are scared that somebody's going to say the wrong thing and they're going to get sued. So I think it's a great idea to partner with an organization, and then maybe we get somebody from the school to say, all right, here's an organization that are professionals. How can we help? So I think that's it. I think that's a great idea.
Right. Well, Steph, I just want to comment on what you were saying. I happen to agree with you that, like, an overall big picture, the 40 of us over here, we're not going to solve the problem. We're not going to stop the problem. It's going to continue. It's going to get worse. But just imagine this scenario. Like, imagine there's, let's say we set up this program and we partner with an organization and we volunteer, and we do, and we do end up each getting a mentor, a mentee, a kid or whatever, who's troubled or whatever. It could very well be that our relationship with that particular kid could turn that kid around and could stop that kid from doing something destructive to himself, to herself, to other people. It might not be that we're going to stop this problem globally or stop this problem, on the national level. I don't think, we necessarily have the ability to do that. I think the laws have to change, and even then it's still going to be a problem. But if I can stop one person from harming himself, harming herself, or harming other people, just simply by caring about them or showing up for them, then I think we are, as Mike said in the beginning, we are part of the solution then, and you have to be part of the solution. You have to, I agree with you. I think that I don't think this is going to make it go away, but I think it can help one person, and that makes a difference. And that,
I agree. I agree with what you
I mean,
said.
I hate to say this, but just think of one person had really shown up for this murderer. And said, hey, look, you know what? You're good. There's goodness inside of you. I care about you. I'm here for you. Come on, let me teach you. Let me guide you. Let me mentor you. Let me help you. Let me listen to you. Let me support you in your goodness. And that person could have potentially stopped this.
But I know a teacher at Edgewood, well, a friend of mine's nephew, who had him in class and tried to reach out and tried to help him and get help. The father said, okay, the mother said no, and they pulled him out of school and they homeschooled him after that. But and so that's really sad. But I also think that if you know somebody who was involved or was there, just check in with them. Say, I'm thinking of you. When you talk about empathy, just say, I heard you had a scary, situation at the parade. I just want you to know I'm thinking of you. We have a really good friend who's a councilman, and we checked in with him the other day, and he was really appreciative that we were concerned and talked to him. So give a little heart and empathy to your friends and family.
To anybody who thinks they can't help, there's a simple story. I won't go through it, but Google the starfish story about making a difference. One person, one starfish at a time. That's what it's about.
I agree, Mike. That's a great story. And I just wanted to add one thing about what we can do, because I think that we were talking a little bit before about our kids, whether they're 21 or 12 or 4, they're all out there and they're scared and they don't know what they can do. And I think one thing that we can encourage our kids to do, which I'm sure that many of us have done as parents, as grandparents, as aunts and uncles, is, we have our own way of sharing this with our kids. I've always said to my kids, you don't have to be friends with everyone, but you have to be kind to everyone, be inclusive. This shooter did not start out at 18 as a bad seed. He was probably in preschool and kindergarten and whatever, and maybe got ignored on the playground or got bullied or was the bully, which usually when they are the bully, they have underlying reasons. So one thing that we can teach our kids is to be kind to everybody, offer a smile. You don't have to be friends with everybody, but if you see someone sitting alone, invite them in, whatever it is. So I know that our kids are looking for things to do too. And I feel like it starts at these young ages as well. So I feel like, maybe an initiative that we could do as a society is supply buddy benches at schools or something. Where there's I don't know if anybody knows about the buddy benches, but like a buddy bench thing where every playground has a buddy bench and it literally says buddy bench. And if somebody doesn't have someone to play with, they sit on the buddy bench, and then the other kids know, go say hi to this friend.
I love that.
Or something like that, you know what I mean? And so I just feel like it's, as adults, we're looking for things to do, but our kids need things to do too. And there could be ways that we can do that. So just throwing it out there that there's ways to talk to our kids about making a difference as well, that could ripple out and ripple up as these kids in trouble are growing older.
I love that. I love the buddy bench idea. I think Penn should sponsor buddy bench.
David,
Yeah.
when I first saw the shooter's picture, I said, holy bleep, there's 2,000 students in the school. There's, 300 teachers. How could anyone not, not focus on this kid, not investigate or do something? I mean, it's obvious. He wasn't just a nice looking kid. He was an obvious, vibes were sending out. I'm not choked. I just have morning voice. So, I mean, that was just such a red
Pops,
flag.
you could be
by itself.
emotional. You could be emotional.
Okay, I'm not emotional, but I could be. What do you have to do to see
mean,
that this kid, you know, is perhaps, you know, in trouble at least?
Right. What were the tally marks on his face? I want to know what the tally marks on his face represented. You know, were right? What were they? Were they times that he had been beaten by his father? Were they, were they times that he had been bullied in school? What did those 5 tally marks mean? They meant something.
The parents were in total denial of what was going on. The father claimed that the knives were his.
Look at this. Look at this. I mean, you're 100% right. Like, I'm sorry, but that kid has, how can that person buy a gun without being fully, totally
Right.
investigated?
Totally.
You know, I mean,
This is obviously not a normal kid.
right. I can't even look at this. I gotta turn this off. All right. Well, I feel that this was actually, helpful and productive in several ways. Yeah, thank you, Sophia. That's beautiful. Most important word you are not an act to matter, right? You make a difference. I think that's very, very true. I think this is very helpful in a lot of this. First of all, we were able to pray on the behalf together as a community, on behalf of the people who need to be, who need healing and recovery, and we should continue to do so. We also were able to say a memorial prayer for those who lost their lives. And then together as a community, first of all, we were able to listen to each other, just to hear each other, and not, show up for each other and give people a chance to say what they felt they wanted to say. And then I feel like we turned it into a positive direction, and we were able to, come up with some ideas. And I think we should continue to further explore ideas, both in terms of what we can do as a community to make a difference, also moving forward on our security plan, at Heim Center. So I want to thank everybody for making the time this morning to join. I feel that we have, we are blessed. We have a beautiful community. We have incredible support. We support each other. We care for each other. We show up for each other. And we're very blessed. We should never take that for granted. And we should show up for other people in the same way that we show up for each other. Okay, wishing everybody Shavua Tov. Everyone should have a good, healthy week. And we'll continue learning more and growing together as the week goes on. Okay?
Thank you. I wanted to just real quick, sorry. I've been listening the whole time as well. And I wanted to thank you, Rabbi David, and the whole Chaim Center and everyone. It's been amazing to have the community support of you guys, of Central Avenue Synagogue, of other shuls in the area, and just the whole community as a whole. We were so appreciative of all of the support. So just healing for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Wishing you lots of love and all good things. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi David.
Okay, have a great week, everybody.
Thank you,
Rabbi.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.